Good afternoon and welcome to Yameo's first webinar, everyone. Thank you for taking the time and joining us here on LinkedIn. And thank you for whoever's going to view this afterwards as well. My name is Nick van Xanten. I'm Business Development Manager at Yameo since 2016. And yeah, today we're going to talk about the topic AI and whether you should consider to include AI in your next software projects. Without further ado, I'd like to, let's get started. I will focus today from a two-pronged approach. The first one is looking at a business purpose, so the business perspective of using AI. And the second one is from a pop culture viewpoint, a few nice, interesting things. But firstly, let's first have a quick definition of what is AI. I've gone with a very simple explanation here, which is just a simulation of human intelligence processes by machines, specifically computer systems. So very simply put, it's just a computer that is trying to mimic human intelligence. Um, and I will take a very, very brief step into the history, the background of AI. We can go back, to the 1940s, but I will stick with the 2000s, looking at machine learning. Machine learning really took off in the 2000s when computers started to learn from data that was being input. So we started to generate techniques like decision trees, support vector machines, and especially neural networks. This gained a lot of popularity and really was the foundation, I would say, for a lot of the AI solutions that we know today. In the 2010s, there was another breakthrough, especially in deep learning, also because of improvements in things like hardware and large data sets. Um, Much more deeper neural networks were set up, which actually demonstrated exceptional performance in various tasks by AI. So they started to recognize, for example, images, but also language. So natural language processing became a big thing. So in the 2010s, for example, Siri was something that really started to pop up. And that's because during this period, there was this big breakthrough and all of these solutions and technologies were advancing so that they could start to interpret audio data as well. Looking into the foremost common forms, I would say, of AI, we have intelligent automation. This is especially useful for repetitive tasks. I know at Yameo, we sometimes use it for very simple, repetitive, mundane tasks. The only downside is still, of course, a little bit of a human control needed at the moment. But it's definitely a form of AI that is picking up, making things very quick, very efficient as well. And you have intelligent data management as well, which is basically taking large groups of data and being able to process this in a very, very efficient manner. So for organizations that have large data or create large amounts of data, as you can imagine, this is pretty useful. Image and video processing is actually something that we are also working with at Yameo in our video in person product. We're using this, for example, to upload pictures or use a video stream where, for example, there's a damaged car, and in the insurance sector, you need to have a quick analysis of what is the damage. And with AI, we're able to record basic information like the car make, brand, license plate, but also have a very first analysis of what is the actual damage as well. So a nice form of AI that we see is being used much more and more. And then there's data analysis and insights. So things like data mining, data clustering as well. So again, for really taking data and maximizing its potential. So for software developers, we can use AI to identify trends, perform sentiment analysis, gain actionable information from data. Before I continue, I just wanted to share a nice, like I said, a culture reference point. The AI robot Sophia, developed by a company in Hong Kong. It's one of the most advanced AI humanoids out there right now. And she was actually asked, what will humans actually do with AI eventually? And she predicted we will actually integrate it into our own bodies, which I think is a very Interesting thoughts. I know that there are certain microchips, for example, you can already embed under your skin, but that's, I think, a pretty big step removed from AI. So it's an interesting thought about a prediction that a humanoid thinks we will eventually go to. Looking at software projects. So the benefits of AI in software projects. Of course, AI is very well renowned for improving efficiency, especially in automating and repetitive tasks. So there's things like cutting costs, cutting down time needed to perform tasks. I know that there are tools, for example, that help software companies predict project delivery much more quickly and much more accurately. So this, of course, win-win for both we as software developers, but also for customers that want to, for example, do fixed price project proposals. But there's also this improved user experience because AI, it's very good at analyzing patterns, analyzing behavior, and then providing recommendations that are based on personal human experiences. I'll show an example at the end of this webinar from KLM, how they actually took AI and really ran with it and improved the user experience for their customers. And third, there's a data-driven decision making. So the algorithms basically are able to extract valuable insights from large data sets. This is really giving decision makers a very key piece of information, which would be normally take weeks, months to find. With AI, this kind of information can be almost in real time be analyzed and found and used in decision making processes. So some real world examples, natural language processing, like I've mentioned it before, things like chatbots, but also, for example, Google Translate. In the 2010s, when this started to pick up, you might remember that Google Translate was very simple. It didn't always correctly interpret things like cultural context. But as this technology keeps developing, it catches up and it improves itself. So nowadays, Google Translate, it's actually very accurate when you're translating language, and also taking, for example, things like cultural context into play as well. Image and video processing. So AI algorithms, they're very well developed now that they can interpret visual data. So they can actually, with cameras, with pictures, see what is going on and translate this into actionable outcomes. And I think a nice example is Tesla, that they're using this driverless car. So with video, for example, they're already able to absorb the data that they see via the camera and translate this into an actionable outcome, such as brake, hit the gas, turn left, turn right, etc. And robotics AI as well is a very nice example where a real software solution is using AI to improve its overall performance. And the Roomba vacuum cleaner, you might know, the first models that came out, they would kind of occasionally bump into the furniture, whereas the latest models are actually learning what are the surroundings, and, for example, learning not to go off the stairs, for example, is a nice feature. So assessing the need, whether AI is the right thing for your software project. I've gone with 6 examples here, as I think they're pretty nicely linked. You have problem complexity. So what is the real problem that you're trying to solve? So in cases where just trying to speed up a certain process, I would say that AI can be useful, but it's a very simple, complex solution. A simple, non-complex problem that you need to solve. And AI definitely is a value when it comes to a solution that has to constantly adapt to changing environments, changing methods. So for example, fraud. If you look at banking institutions, they're constantly trying to battle fraud. Fraud obviously changes as the people who commit fraud are committing those actions in different ways, trying to avert the solutions that are being put in place. And AI, for example, is a very good way of trying to combat this, as it's a very flexible, very good technology to constantly adapt, learn, and make intelligent decisions for this. But to do so, it requires a significant amount of data. So that's the second need, I would say, that you need to assess if AI is applicable for your next software projects. Because the data available, and especially the quality of data that's available, is very relevant to the project. Because AI algorithms, they will typically run on data, and this is fed into different models, and these models require large sets qualitative data to make very accurate, actionable outcomes. So without the data available, and especially without quality data available, AI may not be the right choice for your next project at this time. Then there's expertise and resources. AI is a very hot topic, but it's also a relatively new topic when it comes to mass commercialized usage. Of course, there are things like chatbots that are already readily available, but AI is taking steps beyond this. That there's much more usage of it, and for that it requires considerable amount of expertise and resources as well. Expertise in sense of model training, but also in learning and being able to train the AI models to behave as you expect them to behave for your certain software solution. This leads to a lot of costs as well, because AI requires a huge amount of computing power, data storage, and a very, very stable infrastructure, which brings with it its own costs, which you wouldn't always see with normal or general software projects, which do not have an AI component. So those are definitely things that I would say you need to consider. And finally, as well, the maintenance and upkeep, because maintenance, there is this huge, strong network infrastructure and storage of data that is required, which means that there has to be a level of maintenance to match that. In terms of updates, AI is a continuously updating technology. So going into the future, they may need a lot of updates, retraining, continuous monitoring by you and your team in order to continually maximize the efficiency of your software solution. And finally, there are, of course, ethical legal constraints. This is a topic I think that's discussed quite a lot in media, especially when public figures like Elon Musk are signing letters saying that there should be a halt on development of AI technologies due to the ethical and legal aspects. There is a big question mark here, I would say, that companies need to consider if AI is worth it right now to implement when a lot of this ethical and legal talk is not yet finalized what will happen. This brings us to some of the challenges that we at least see regarding AI. From a business perspective, like I've mentioned, data is of course a huge thing. You have the ethical and bias concern. From a bias concern, what it means really is a AI model learns from its creator. So the creator, so in this case, developers, they input the data and they train the model to behave in a certain way. But if there's already bias from the offsets, maybe biased data, but also maybe biased training, this can already create a challenge for a very fair, honest, and efficient, AI-based software solution. There's also a skill and expertise gap from a business perspective. You might have a very good agency that can support you in developing an AI solution, but when it comes to maintenance or in-house hosting or in-house management of such a solution, I would say a lot of organizations still have a gap that needs to be filled with that. Regulatory and legal compliance is a topic that I've just touched upon as well, as there's still a lot of regulations, I would say, not yet set for AI. For example, here in the European Union, there's a lot of talk that in Brussels they are looking at some new regulations when it comes to data and privacy regarding AI, but those have not yet been made official. And the costs and resources with AI projects can be quite a challenge. As like I said, they require a significant amount of infrastructure costs and maintenance. And from a pop culture viewpoint, there is a user acceptance and trust issue that I would say is not always there with other or general software projects. just because AI is a very trending topic right now, but the topic of data and privacy is also very much known. So a lot of users may have a mistrust of using AI solutions as well. The age gap is, I think, a challenge that we see with most new innovations, where younger generations are much quicker to accepting and using new solutions, and older generations take a little bit more time to get accustomed with it. And data and privacy, like I said, is a big topic. But I think one of the main challenges with AI is what they call the AI black box. The AI black box is really that's because AI learns from large volumes of data and patterns, and that basically allows them to produce quick, accurate, actionable outcomes. Um, but there's also a very big drawback, and the drawback is that the AI system cannot always, show its work. I would say how it got to that particular conclusion. Um, so this kind of raises a big question mark, I would say, about the trust, the transparency, and maybe even the compliancy of such solutions, in certain industries. Because especially if you look at, again, the financial services organization sector, or insurance, or government, this area of transparency and trust needs to be there. They need to know how a solution came to an actionable outcome, especially if that outcome is going to have an impact on customers. So if an insurance company cannot show why, for example, someone is being considered as a fraudulent reporter of an insurance claim, um, that's going to cause a big level of mistrust in this AI solution. So it's a big challenge. But I will show you an example as well of actually how a company in the United States is working to combat this particular challenge. So looking at another important aspect of AI and software projects, so the ROI, the return on investment, I would say similar to normal, software projects without AI. You have KPIs, the costs, the benefits, if you're able to quantify those, but also the monitoring and adjustment after deployment. But looking really at AI, I think there are two main assessments that you should consider for AI, and that is, what is the real value of AI? So if your goal is efficiency, or if it's cost reduction, maybe it's to improve customer experiences. These are, I would say, goals that apply to most software projects, but it's really important to focus. Does the AI component add that much more value compared to all of the costs, and also to all of the risks that are associated? So risks, like I've said, that there might be new regulations in the future, which mean that your AI based solution cannot operate as it should, or cannot operate as it's allowed to. These are very important, I would say, elements to consider before implementing an AI based software solution. But also looking at data. So again, going back to your data availability, looking at what will there be a steady stream of data, so that the models the AI models used, for example, can continually learn, can continually adapt, so that they continually stay effective for your company as a part of a whole software solution. So those are, I think, two very much AI related considerations when it comes to the ROI, other than, I would say, the general components like KPIs, costs, quantification of benefits, etc. So looking here at the bottom, there really are three things to look at. So it's upfront costs, because it does require a high development and resource costs. The long-term benefits, and the pace of innovation for AI right now is enormous. They're making huge strides. So it really is a question of, can you keep up with the pace of innovation? But if you can, it offers you huge competitive advantages, being an early adopter or an innovator of this technology for your company. So a few best practices. Again, data quality and preparation. Definitely, before considering AI, I would say definitely spend a significant amount of time in vetting the quality, in preparing the data, normalizing it, removing any noise, and handle missing values, but really to ensure the consistency of the data is there, because without this, it's going to be very difficult to successfully train a very suitable AI model for your software projects. Secondly, together with any software partner that you have, I would definitely go with a iterative development process. This is something at Yameo we do frequently. So we break down the full development into small, I would say, digestible chunks, each with their own milestone and goals, allowing for continuous feedback from the customer, but also end users, and making adjustments as we go along. So it really makes the whole process of having AI integrations in software projects much more easily to manage. And finally, the model selection. So you have different models. You have deep learning, for example, different models that focus on different areas. So it's very important here as well to I would say put some effort into identifying the different models that may apply to your situation, to your data, to the problem that you have, and from there look at a partner that can help you with developing a model that suits you. There are three topics here: ethical challenges, responsible AI, and mitigation strategies. Just before we jump to some real-world examples, from an ethical challenge, something I've touched upon briefly was the bias and fairness aspect. So because AI systems here are they can inherit biases, I would say, from the data. So if the data is not properly vetted, if it's not of a high quality, they may already be AI solutions that are running or operating with bias or unfairness elements to them, but also that from their creators. So if they are trained with biases from the creators, this also has a negative impact on the I would say the effectiveness of your AI-based software solution. But like I said, I will also show a real-world example of a company who is helping to overcome that particular challenge. The black box challenge, like I've shown, is really about interpreting the decisions and behaviors of AI solutions. So how are they coming to their actionable outcomes? If there's no clear explainability, how they came to that outcome, it kind of decreases the transparency and trust that you can place in that particular solution, and whether you should still be using that solution going forward. And then you have privacy and data. So because it's often a lot of solutions will be processing data, may also be processing sensitive user data. There's this big question mark, I would say, of AI and its role in processing this, because like we said, AI, it's a simulation of human intelligence processes. So if a human is processing and having access to sensitive user data, do those same rules, do the same regulations that apply to humans apply to AI in this instance? Right now, there is a very big question mark whether this is going to be the case or not. Which brings actually to the second column here, so responsible AI development. And this focuses on something that you as a company should look at and say, are we going to be contributing, for example, positively to society with this solution? Or are we going to invest more into protecting the user rights? So it's really, because I mentioned this because a lot of innovations happen because they push the limits of what is currently acceptable, and often once they have gone to a new level, they've reached a new level of innovation, a really game-changing solution, and then regulations jump in. This can have a very negative impact, I would say, on the solution, but also from a company perspective. So there is this consideration for companies to really think about innovation versus regulations, about regulations now, but also regulations going forward. But some mitigation strategies that you can employ as a company are ethical frameworks, impact assessments. So similar to how you might implement other software solutions, and have, for example, impact assessments to also include, for example, ethical frameworks of AI, and spend some time on this within your company, and make sure you limit, I would say, the risk of any ethical challenges being a negative on your new AI-based software solution. Second, a diverse and interdisciplinary team. Why this is important is because there are different perspectives from different backgrounds when it comes to things like user data, or when it comes to bias or fairness. All very important elements that are related to AI solutions. So having a very diverse team working on your AI solutions will really maximize the chance that you eventually create any bias, sorry, or any negative effects that will particularly target a certain um, ethical background or a certain group of people. So this is definitely one of the strategies you can employ to minimize this. And finally, the transparency and explainability. It's the black box theory that I've just mentioned, but I will show you a real world example of how this actually can be mitigated. But before doing it, just to share a nice quote from Alan Turing, he said a computer would deserve to be called intelligent if it could deceive a human into believing that it was human. And the nice example is actually from ChatGPT recently, where someone asked ChatGPT to invest some money and kind of grow this money into success, into a certain successful outcome. And ChatGPT was actually using a site called Fiverr, and they were communicating with another human being, asking that human being to perform a certain task. The solution was paying this human being a small amount of money, and that human being was, so this person was developing or performing a certain action, which actually increased the value of the money that the ChatGPT had to spend. So it was able to actually deceive another human being that it was a human, albeit via text, so via messages instead of via voice or video. But nonetheless, it was a very interesting use case that someone was unable to determine that who they were talking with was actually an AI solution. But to some of the real world examples that I was mentioning. So we have a company called hashtag C42. They created a solution called Pythia, and Pythia, it's focusing on AI and machine learning systems, and they are focusing really on the fair, accountable, and explainability part that I've mentioned that is a challenge with a lot of AI-based solutions. So what they've done is they've set up with different AI algorithms, they've set up a solution that can actually run and analyze AI solutions, which then um, determine basically if there's any element of bias or unfairness within that solution. And the challenges they had when setting it up was firstly the component of on and off premise. For example, financial organizations often require on-premise hosting of solutions. So this was a component they needed to check on. But the interesting thing was their challenge was explainability mechanism of their own solution, which was supposed to see if there was transparency with other AI and machine learning systems. So um, they have some very high tech guys who were working on this for about 6 months, and eventually they came up with a process where their solution Pythia could exactly explain the outcome based on the input. So the input was this AI machine learning system, how it operated, and they could then eventually see exactly how their solution, Pythia, would come to the outcome that there was bias or there was, for example, an element of unfair behavior. So it took them a long time, but they were able to succeed. And so this is actually the first major solution I would say that's used by banks, primarily in the US at this moment, to vet their own AI-based solutions to see if there is any unfairness, if there is any bias in it as well. And this helps with the whole unexplainability element as well, as this solution is able to show banks that certain elements of their solution may be biased or may be unfair to certain target groups based on the data, for example, that they are given. Like I said, I would also mention KLM. KLM really focused on the customer service perspective with a solution called Bluebot. So they teamed up with an agency specialized on AI, and using natural language processing, they took the chatbot really to a new level, allowing it to do things like bookings, refunds, baggage allowances. And the results have been pretty good. As you can see here, they've got 60% of all customer service issues now handled by the chatbot without human intervention, which means that there's a huge group of human service agents that are now able to spend time on more complex issues. And as a result, the overall customer service has drastically improved for KLM. And finally, the third example, it's from the world of football. Manchester City, they are partnered with a company called Second Spectrum, using an AI-powered platform to provide real-time insights and analysis of football matches. So this is using the video processing AI algorithm that I've mentioned before. They're able to detect, for example, movement, but also behavior of players on the pitch during the match. And machine learning algorithms determine expected outcomes. So in the background, you can see here, there's a player called Vincent Kompany. He's about to shoot. You can see that the XG, which is expected goals, is 0.03, which is very low. So this is already providing the managers insights in real time about the performance of certain players. So as a result, you can understand that they've been drastically able to improve their performance on the field because they're able to make very well-informed strategic decisions in real time with data that they otherwise would not have. And as well, I don't know if it's as a result of this, but they won the treble last season, which is all the trophies they can win. So maybe it was because of this particular solution. So that's our Yameo's take into AI. Whether briefly whether you should assess it for your next software projects. For now, I would like to say thank you again for your time. But more importantly, if you have any questions, please leave them in the chat right now. Or if you have actually your own thoughts on AI, please share them as well, or leave them in the comments of this event as well, and we will get back to you. We will also be making this webinar available afterwards. So for those who if you think there's anyone who might be interested to see or could learn from this as well, please feel free to share it with them or tag them in the comments. So otherwise, thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please let me know.